Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 190 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. So today we are going to do another repost. This time we are going to do it with a solo episode, and that was kind of the conversation with reposts and figuring those out was, all right, we could do better sharing some old information. There is, I always tell you guys on the show how important it is to me that the information that is shared is timeless. And even if that information morphs and grows and I think about it differently later on, still those original episodes to me are going to have certain nuggets and certain perspectives that I probably no longer have or no longer use. And so I thought we would experiment doing a repost of an old episode. And I guess the reason I'm really looking at doing this, I told you guys I would do this with some interviews. Well, then me and producer Bryce got crazy and recorded like 7 episodes interviews in like a week. And so I have a lot of interviews to share with you guys. It really doesn't make sense to start doing reposts and push everybody back even further on Tuesdays, but I am not as far ahead on my solo episodes as I normally am. And so I thought, you know what? I wonder if people would like to hear some old favorites. And I really didn't even have to think about which one I was going to choose. Once I had the idea of a repost solo episode, I go, it's got to be Blitzing. To me, this episode is the most significant solo episode that I've done in I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show history, including the designated winner episodes. And it's not because it was it's better information. Obviously, designated winners probably help more people. But for me, it was the first time that I delivered information in this way on the podcast. I know I don't have this thought totally complete yet, but I know where I'm at right now with it would be very helpful to people. And like so many thoughts, I shared designated winner with you guys so early on before I really had any handle on it. Not that I even know that I have a handle on it now. But this idea of pacing and blitzing and understanding that well and understanding how you can utilize that with your own physical attributes, and that's what we're going to get into today. It's not something that you've probably heard on a podcast. And that is, to me, I also referenced, I think at the very beginning, that I am, this was the first week that I was going to try to post every Thursday. And so I think we're almost 2 years later now. We're a year and a half later, and I have not missed a Thursday. And so there was some significance there in sharing that episode with you guys. But also just, I guess it's more, maybe this episode isn't going to be as helpful. Maybe the reason I'm sharing this is more personal than it is. I've also heard so many people, I always ask people that say that they like the show, almost as a pop quiz. I go, what episodes do you like? And blitzing is definitely the most common solo episode answer that I get. My dad's episodes, Eric Ebner's episode, Justin Huff's, Kyle Watson, anybody that I know very well is the interviews that I get. And that's why I'm sitting in Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu 2.0, is because I ask enough people and enough people told me I like it best when you interview your friends, when you interview people that you know well. And that doesn't mean that we won't do big interviews and we won't sit down with coaches that I don't know very well. But the main focus on the podcast is going to be, we have this great studio in person. Who can we interview? What can we do with these people? But anyway, with this episode, it really kicked off so much for me. And it was really so significant for me. I also kind of hint at having competed. And I had just competed at Worlds, and it was it was one of the last times that I was going to do medium heavyweight, and I recognized it. I recognized that I was not in shape. So a lot of the physicality stuff that I'm talking about I'm actually talking about in myself. And I can't tell you a year and a half later that everything has paid off, but I can tell you a year and a half later that I'm competing at middleweight, and I'm definitely competing at a higher level than I was a year and a half ago. But it's probably not even close. And my ability to train, my injury rate, everything has totally changed. And those things are things that I reference on this episode. I don't talk about them, how that I'm struggling with them personally, deeply at that time. But it's cool to look back and say, okay, well, I'm not struggling with those things now. Of course, I'm struggling with just fighting really, really tough people. You know, I'm still in those same divisions. I moved down to middleweight, and I did it at a time that everybody either moved down to light or everybody moved up to medium heavyweight. And now it's only the middleweight king, and then the guys tough enough to think they can beat the middleweight king. And so it's just become this super tough division, but it's also been so much fun, and I've learned so much. And I know it's going to benefit the podcast no matter where it goes. But those lessons that I got from the Blitzing episode, I got injured at Worlds, overweight, watching the finals of Worlds, watching Black Belt Day that I'm not getting to compete in because I lost on day one. And that is where that first idea of blitzing and seeing at a specific match that it really clicked to me was Jamil Hill and Fabricio Andre at Worlds, whatever that year was. But watching Fabricio blitz and just go out really hard, attacking something, everyone in the arena really thought that Shane was going to win. Everybody was like, man, Shane has been untouchable. He's gonna kill this guy. And then the blitz. And that really, to me, was like, okay, there is something else. There are other things at Black Belt that are happening that I do not understand, and I can't really learn organically because I don't know a lot of people that I talk to daily that compete at adult Black Belt. And I train with very few people that compete. I train with no people that compete at adult Black Belt. And so it kind of creates this thing where I'm having to be the one to find these ideas, and I'm having to be the one to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just really changed things. But that is a really long reason for why I wanted to share this episode with you guys, was how significant it was for me. And then I'm still very much on the journey, but I'm seeing so much progress. And so all those other things that we talked about on the way from episode 111 with blitzing and pacing and strategy, all those things we've talked about since, about consistency, I've also been trying to practice. And so I have been trying to guinea pig with you guys. Hopefully this episode 111 becomes more timeless because I actually can do something with that information competitively, or more importantly, one of my students could. But anyway, I'm pretty off topic. I thought I would go a little longer on my intro and outro just because this is a repost episode. And I think at the end of this episode, this is why it's a little bit longer than it was the first time I posted it, I'm going to do a little breakdown of how I see blitzing now. And I'm going to explain it. I'm going to explain it maybe less simplified because I don't understand it as well, but I'll try to explain it to you the best I can. And we can look at it, and I think you guys may find it fun, especially people that loved the blitzing episode. I think it's going to be helpful for you. But regardless, I really think that you guys are going to love this episode, even if you've heard it once before. This is an episode that people have told me so many times that they've listened to 3 or 4 times to really understand the idea. And like I said, I'll give you a little more context and a little better picture painted after a year and a half where I've really gotten to practice this idea and focus on it more. And let's get into the episode. I thought it would be smartest to start this episode revisiting something that I talked about in episode 20, an idea that I came up with while I was laying in bed. And I want to say that this episode was deep into the beginning of quarantine when we had no idea that
the things that we have dealt with were going to last for so long. And we were all just oblivious of things. And I was just thinking about jiu-jitsu. And so I came up with something that I call the positional paradox. And when I say I came up with something, I'm not saying that I am the only person who's ever thought of this in jiu-jitsu. Okay. I don't make those claims. A lot of people have probably thought of this, but very few people explain stuff very well. And so that knowledge, that big insight of jiu-jitsu, it gets lost. Okay. And so that is why on my podcast, I'm constantly naming things. And it may be something that you say, oh, well, we have something similar in our gym, right? I'm basically always just throwing all kinds of Josh isms on the show. And the positional paradox is one of them. What the positional paradox states is whoever focuses on more technique has less success. Okay. So it's just a really simple thought process, though. I know that sounds nuts. What do you mean? If I focus on more technique, if I know more technique, I will have less success. Notice the wording. I do not say whoever knows more technique. Okay. Knowledge is not something that we ever want to not be excited about in jiu-jitsu. Knowledge is pretty much always going to be good. Knowing when to use that knowledge is incredibly important, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about when you should be using specific techniques, when you should be pacing, when you should be understanding even what pacing is. What the heck is pacing? That's what we're going to get into today, and I'm excited about it. But we're going to start with the positional paradox and just make some little notes on that, and then we'll get into what is strategy, why we should be using it, and then we're going to get into some of the simplest stuff about a new Joshism, a new phrase that I am coining for jiu-jitsu. Maybe some people use this phrase, maybe not, but I doubt many of them use it on their podcast. So we're going to talk about blitzing and the art of the blitz in jiu-jitsu and what that means and how to use it and even how to counter it. So we have a lot to get into today. And as you guys can hear from my voice, I don't sound as sharp as usual. I am coming off of being sick. So, but you know what? The goal of this year is I am dropping an episode every single Thursday. And if I don't record it right now, then it's not going to be able to come out on Thursday. And so, well, I'm a little sick. We're still going to talk jiu-jitsu. Hopefully I don't get this. Hopefully I don't get you guys sick through the microphone. That would be crazy. Anyway, back to the positional paradox. So with the positional paradox, like I said, knowledge is not the enemy. Focus is the important thing here. This is where people don't talk about, where what people don't talk about. A lot of times we don't talk about in jiu-jitsu, what are you thinking about while you're moving, while you're rolling live? And people ask that question, but a lot of times the answers kind of suck. And people will say, oh, well, I'm just thinking about what techniques I'm doing, or I'm just thinking, I mean, the answers are just generic and they don't help people create like a really positive pattern of thinking. If you guys are interested in knowing what black belts and what high level black belts think about while they're training, I have an episode on the Patreon coming out this Saturday, also recorded while sick. So my voice is still nice and raspy if you guys are into that. And that's coming out this Saturday. You guys would really, really enjoy it. It's just going to be about 10 minutes where I discuss what you should be aiming to have your thought process be when you are rolling. And we'll make it really graspable for you guys, and you'll be able to just get a ton better through thinking through your rounds. And we'll talk about that too. But again, back to the positional paradox. I keep just wanting to get away from it, but this is what we need to discuss. So with the positional paradox, we need to make sure that we have very simple and general ideas that we are thinking in jiu-jitsu, okay? If we think too specific with too many different options, that is one of the worst things that we can do. We can think specific and say, I am here today, I'm going to create triangles, right? I'm looking for a very specific move. but it's a very general idea. I have a lot of different options that I can create triangles. And when I simplify my thought process that much, a lot of times I get more success. Basically, when I'm saying, okay, I'm only here to look for triangles, well, now I have a really simple two-step game plan. If I'm in a triangle, I'm trying to finish it. If I'm not in a triangle, I'm trying to get there. So you can even expand on that and say, if I don't have the person in a triangle, I'm trying to create a position that will allow me to get the person into the triangle, right? And so you kind of get this game plan that a lot of people don't have when they're rolling. They are just seeing what positions happen and seeing what they know. As we progress, as we simplify our thought process, what should start to happen is maybe I'm in bottom side control. I know that, hey, my goal is to get to triangle. So even though I'm fighting to get back to closed guard, if there is a triangle there, that's where I'm going instead. That was the whole goal. And so I have a really simple way to fight. And maybe this guy said, well, everybody just tries to fight back to closed guard. Why would he be going for the triangle? Well, it's just part of my game plan, right? So using the positional paradox and saying, I am going to use it the opposite and have really simple game plans, that is going to be one of the biggest steps in your jiu-jitsu. Like when it comes to live rolling, not in your understanding of jiu-jitsu, you can understand jiu-jitsu and struggle to express it, right? To struggle to express it on the mats. Now, you need both. You need to express jiu-jitsu to have a firm understanding and a firm grasp, because there are so many things that we can't verbalize that happen in jiu-jitsu. There are so many things that we feel in jiu-jitsu. Like when you're talking to your wife and you say, well, and she says, well, I feel this way, and then explains it. And then you guys talk about it for a while. And by the time you get to the end of the conversation, you say, oh my gosh, that wasn't what you originally said. You're mad about something completely different. Well, maybe your wife's crazy. Okay. Maybe that she is, maybe she did just change her argument. But this is an argument that happens for a lot of couples, and we don't think through it. Maybe what your wife is feeling is incredibly hard to explain in words because it's a feeling, right? It's not something that we can just explain in words. And so maybe that initial thought of what she was feeling was actually wrong. She wasn't lying to you. She was just wrong. I feel like you are raising your voice a lot, right? And then by the time you get to the end of the conversation, it really had nothing to do with your voice. It more had to do with what happened at work that day. But you don't really realize that because you don't understand the feeling, right? That is my argument for like people that say, oh, you don't need to train jiu-jitsu to understand it. You can just like see it and know techniques. Yes, you can know techniques, but if you have never felt it, you can never fully comprehend it, right? Because we cannot take feelings and explain them perfectly into words. Even the best people in the world, the best philosophers in the world, that's really what a lot of the times they're doing, is taking things that we all feel and we all kind of understand. And they say, well, now we'll try to put this into words. That makes you brilliant to be able to put feeling into words. And so to just hear other people speak words about jiu-jitsu and then say, oh yeah, I know for sure that I understand what they mean without ever feeling it, most likely you don't. It's a bit of a tangent, but just on that sense of feeling and kind of understanding jiu-jitsu, this is kind of where I wanted to lead that to, is there are some parts of jiu-jitsu that they're understood, they're talked about slightly, but they're not given enough thought. And one of the biggest ones, and this is what we're going to spend, as I've told you guys, we're going to spend like the next 6 weeks on, it's strategy, right? This whole first part of this episode really is just an intro into why we need strategy. Because if I just start out and say we need strategy before I explain what strategy is, or before we look at why we need strategy, we need a simple game plan, right? We need something easy that we can follow. So then we are not weighing ourselves down by thinking about too many different techniques, by focusing on too many different techniques. I think that this is how you marry the people that are like big on technique and the people that are big on concept. is understanding that they are two different things, that concept and strategy are a lot more closely related than concept and technique, right? Concept and technique are they're kind of two different sides of the coin, but strategy and concept they're almost the same thing, and they can be used very, very well together. And we're going to get into that. So I think the best place to start with strategy is to figure out why we need it. And the biggest reason you need strategy is when your technique isn't sufficient. For example, if I am fighting a person and maybe I am technically more sound than them, I am a better technician than they are, but they are substantially bigger and stronger than me. Well, I know I have better technique, but if I just keep trying to win the technique battle, somebody's bigger, stronger, let's just say they beat me on all the physical attributes. They're faster and they have better cardio. So if I go out and say, well, I'm the better technician, I'm just going to go at my normal pace and just keep beating them from everywhere. Well, unless I am crazy better as a technician, eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to keep beating them and beating them. And then slowly we're going to start to get closer and I'm going to stop beating them as much. And then they're going to start beating me. And I'm just talking about in a round, not like over time, right? But in the round, they're going to slowly start to beat me. Why? Because I was tired. I didn't take into I didn't think about that it's really important. It's really important to think of the round as a whole. So this is how I've been thinking about it lately. This has really helped me as a strategist. I like to think of it like this. If jiu-jitsu is an art and we are all artists, we're all going to paint a picture, okay? And that picture is a single round of jiu-jitsu, a single contract of jiu-jitsu. And I'll explain the contract idea in a second. But the basic idea of the contract, I'll just explain it now, is when we're going to do a 5-minute round, we are not like, at least at the gym, it's not like a tournament where you're going in and you're saying, if I get submitted here, the round is over and then we all go home. The difference at the gym is you basically are saying, we're going to have a social contract. You and I, for the next 5 minutes, are both going to continually try to win in this jiu-jitsu round. How most people think of it is, I'm going to go into this round and I'm going to submit the guy, and then I can kind of mess around for the next 4 minutes because I already won the round, right? That is a horrible way to think of rounds. I think that learning how to paint your whole picture, paint your entire round, or sometimes I think I've talked about this on the show, call it choreographing a round. There are guys that I will go with that are pretty good, and I know that they're very good in specific positions. And so if in the round I wanted to say, okay, I'm going to avoid those positions and I'm just going to smash this person. I'm saying I'm good enough in this round to be able to say, I know I will win this round if I really want to, if I really put my focus on it. So what I'll do instead is I'll say, okay, it's a 5-minute round. I want this person to have me, they're great at leg locks, and I need to be working on my leg lock defense. I need to get at least full minute in this round where I am working leg lock defense, where they're just attacking my legs constantly and I'm having to defend. Okay. So I won't always say like at minute 2, I'm going to do that, but that's something like I have kind of a general idea. That's something I want. Right. And I know that sounds weird. I know the strategy that I'm giving you guys right now is a training strategy. It's a getting better strategy. And we're going to be talking about blitzing in a second, which is not a getting better strategy. It is a strategy to win rounds. Okay. But like I said, same idea. I'm choreographing my rounds so then I can get what I need to out of the round, and I can do it as the whole 5-minute round, right? Because a lot of times when we're competing, the submission doesn't come. And we are going to have to grapple an entire 7 minutes. And we're used to finishing the guy in 3 minutes or being finished in 3 minutes. Well, if we don't know how to choreograph a whole round, if we don't know how to, like I said, paint a whole picture, for example, if we go out and let's say the paint is our cardio and we use a ton of our paint in the first top corner of the painting, and now we're spread pretty thin to be able to finish this whole painting. What do you think is going to happen? Well, in jiu-jitsu terms, we're going to lose. We're going to get beat up. Even if the top corner of this painting is the most beautiful top corner of any painting ever, if we were not thinking of the whole painting, if we were not rationing out some of our gas tank, well, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to lose, right? So strategy is the idea of how we are going to paint the entire picture. And I think you should use strategy in every single round that you do, unless sometimes the strategy is that you do want to just have some freedom and you want to have some creativity in your jiu-jitsu. Because if you're using too much strategy, you can actually stifle your own creativity. So we have to be careful about that. Like I said, this whole month, actually the whole 6 weeks, we're going to be talking about strategy. So I'm not going to dig into any more specifics on the reasons to have broad strategy and things like that. We're just going to talk about something that I noticed at the Worlds. And I really think that it mattered more in a lot of matches than technique did. And I know that sounds crazy, but when I'm talking about the Worlds, I'm talking about the black belt adult Worlds. I'm talking about the best guys on the planet that all know technique. It's important to remember we're not in a place anymore where techniques are that secret. Yes, sequencing of certain techniques are still, can still be kind of secret, mainly because people don't know how to teach them very well. But I don't think that they're like held tightly as secrets. Most stuff is on YouTube. Most stuff is on Flow. Most stuff's on BJJ Fanatics. So most stuff is on simplifyingjujitsu.com. So you could pretty much, there is no reason if you have $1,000, you pretty much know, or you could have access to most jiu-jitsu techniques on the planet with $1,000. There is not much that would be hidden from you. The problem isn't technique. Most of the problem is knowing how to use it efficiently, right? At white belt, of course, if there is a guy who just has substantially better technique than everybody, they're going to win. At blue belt, a lot of times that still happens. At purple belt, it starts happening less. People that are strategists start to figure out, hey, I can't beat this guy everywhere. But if I blitz at the right times, he doesn't seem to be able to handle that well. So what a blitz is, we'll say it in football. Okay. So if you guys ever watch American football, something they will do, they'll talk about a lot is when the defense blitz. And that is when the defense takes more than usual defenders to rush the quarterback. Okay. Meaning like they all try to tackle the quarterback at one time. So they might blitz with 5 or 6 different people. And the idea is that they are trying to tackle the quarterback and they're giving up a little bit of their defense to do it, right? So that is what we're doing in jiu-jitsu. But how we're thinking of the blitz is really a pacing thing. The next 2 episodes are just on pacing. Obviously, because we had the first big part of this episode be about what strategy is and the positional paradox.
Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just wanted to let you know that we're in the final countdown of our sale of the limited edition I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Imposed Will No Gi sets, no gi collaboration. If you don't know, Imposed Will, my sponsor, and I got together and formed the coolest rash guard, the coolest short set that, of course, I've ever seen. Obviously, I'm biased, but a lot of people have told me it's some of their favorite shorts no-gi set that they've ever seen. Also, so many of my students now are rocking Imposed Will, and it is simply because their rash guards, their shorts, their gis are just so comfortable. To me, the quality is unmatched. They are not ordering the same thing that everybody else is ordering and putting different logos on it. They are obviously doing something different. You notice it in the quality of every single thing that they have, but you especially notice it in how cool the ISAJJ Jiu-Jitsu Show rash guard and shorts are. We have 2 color options. Again, the pre-sale is going to end May 1st, and we may never do these again. We really have no discussion of where this will go, but we know we're doing a 2-week pre-sale. You will get your order after that pre-sale concludes, and we get the shipment in. And so, yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Let's get back into the episode.
With blitzing, I think it would probably be beneficial, and maybe I'll explain this in the next one on the part 2 of this episode. Maybe I'll try to have a few matches that you guys can watch to get some better understanding of what I mean. But blitzing is any time that you start to use your pace and not only your technique, and you're trying to accomplish 2 things. So you are trying to either win the energy battle with a blitz, or you're trying to win the positional battle with a blitz. For example, disconnected from the guard is one of the easiest places to explain blitzing, okay? So what we would do to blitz somebody disconnected from the guard is we would get Toreando pant grips, bullfighter pant grips. Both hands control the pants. So now we are winning the battle of control. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to run to one side. They're going to stop me. And then I'm going to go and try to run back to the other side. But I'm going to do this on a very, very fast pace. And a lot of the time, at first, I'm not looking to complete the pass. Okay. So what I'm going to do, and I talked about this on a Patreon episode, that one of the best ways to get people to tire is to get them to overfight, right? That's really all we're trying to do with a blitz, or most of the time what we're trying to do with blitz. Sometimes we'll go really hard. Basically, we'll just go really fast for a technique or 2 and see if we can hit something just by being faster. That's a type of blitz. But using the blitz as a strategy is more what we're going to focus on today. And so for our blitz, what we're going to do is we're going to focus more on the energy battle. What I can do is I can create certain fights that feel like I'm resisting at 100% and using 100% of my energy. But a lot of times I'm only using like 20% of my energy, or I'm using 100% of my energy for like a half a second, and then everything else is pretty chill. Okay. But if I can trick my opponent into thinking that I am using 100% energy, most of the time, their best option is to try to match with 100% energy. And that's why I love the Toreando for this, going back and forth and meeting their hands, right? When somebody defends the Toreando pass, they should extend their arms to defend, right? Their hips should be turned towards you, and they should be trying to frame you with their hands. If you're getting around their legs, right? That's the goal, is we're just trying to get around their feet and then get close enough to them to where they have to defend with their hands. And as soon as we feel their hands, we back out and we go to the other side. It's important that we're breathing. It's important that we are in shape for these type of things. We're going to talk about that at the very end. But for right now, we're just going to say that we have those things figured out. We're just looking at the strategy. And so now that I go back and forth, let's say I do this for the first 20 seconds of a round. What can usually happen with a blitz? And this is like the best blitzes ever. This is how they work. They put your opponent in the wrong mental state. So we've all done this. And most of the time it's not on purpose. Not like our opponent didn't do this to us on purpose, but we've all done this in training. We try to retain guard or something. We try to escape mount. We try to do something that's kind of hard, that requires some energy, some speed, some strength, some tenacity from us. And then once that happens, if we meet any resistance, then we say, Pohada it is. And we start going 100%. And then the problem is we never stop going 100% in that entire round. And generally we gas and we lose, or we gas and it ruins our training for the rest of the day. Understanding when people are actually going hard and when they're not is one of the biggest battles ever. Me and my wife were watching jiu-jitsu this morning, and we've just been she's been going to compete more this year. And we have just been watching more rounds, watching more instructionals, watching more matches. And one of my buddies, Jeff Seraphin, who's going to be on the show soon. He's been on the show before, but I actually just messaged him this morning, and we're going to get him on really soon because he's one of my favorite people to talk jiu-jitsu strategy with. So we'll make sure to have him on in the next 6 weeks. But anyway, he has this match online, and he and the guy start going, and I go, "Oh, Jeff's going to kill this guy. You can see it." The match, like, we're 5 seconds into the match. And my wife's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, look how much this guy is moving without reason, right?" I've talked about this on the podcast, movement without cause. And it was because he didn't have a good idea. He didn't have a good game plan. He didn't have a good first step, right? Jeff was defending what he needed to defend. He was standing upright, and he was looking for a specific grip. Once he got the grip, he pulled guard, and it was smooth. You could tell the other guy was so much more fidgety. The guy was so worried about what was going on. He didn't have a game plan. He didn't have a strategy. And that is one of the best ways to win that energy battle, is to just have some specific goals of what you're going to try to do. And when you start to see people fidget and people fight way too hard, whether because they're nervous, whether because they don't think that they can beat you, or hopefully because you tricked them into it, because you convinced them, hey, you should be using more energy than you are right now. That's what I always want you to be feeling when I'm rolling. I always want it to feel like he's using no energy. I'm using all my energy. And the only thing that I could do that could actually win this round for me is to use more energy. That is my ideal round when we are grappling. And you can do this by blitzing really well. For me, I can blitz now for like 3 or 4 seconds on somebody and get them to react for the next minute of the round. Like where I fake like I'm going really hard for something, and then I stop moving and I make them fight out of it. For example, I start a knee cut pass and I stop moving and I really just make it hard. And as they fight out of it, then I might go hard to something else, and again and again. And then after that, I stop and I just go back to normal jiu-jitsu, normal pace of jiu-jitsu. And guess what? Most of the time they keep fighting at that same pace. And so it's just a little bit of an idea to understand the blitz. Then we'll just look at some blitzing in action. Okay. And so I think that blitzing is one of the best ways for a blue belt to beat a black belt. And this will make black belts mad that I'm saying this. People are going to get so upset when you beat them because you understand how to blitz better, and they're supposed to be better than you. It is very offensive in jiu-jitsu for some reason to beat somebody who has better technique than you. It is wrong if you beat somebody who has better technique. Jiu-jitsu is physical. Technique can conquer all, but it's physical. When I go to compete at Worlds, I'm fighting guys that are on PEDs. You're going to act like technique is all that matters. These guys wouldn't be on if it was all that mattered. These guys are winning, right? Technique is not all that matters. There are so many other aspects of jiu-jitsu. So this weird thing of, well, you go too hard in the gym. Now, there is a difference between going hard and hurting people and just going hard and wearing people out. There is a huge difference between those two things. If you're going hard and you are injuring your training partners, then you're doing it wrong. You're a bad training partner. If you are going hard and all you're doing is wearing out the cardio of people and then beating them, then you're doing absolutely nothing wrong. It is their fault for not having a good understanding of strategy in jiu-jitsu. And so this is how a blue belt can beat a black belt. And so, like I said, our whole goal is really the energy battle with the blitz. That is with pacing in general. That is what our goal is, right? In this week, we're talking about the blitz. Next week, we're going to talk about preventing, okay, which is just a different style. It's the opposite of blitzing, and it's basically playing counter jiu-jitsu. We're going to get really deep into that one. And preventing, I think, is something that people don't understand. as well, but I feel like there are more people that understand preventing. And so I think we'll have a few more videos that we could reference, like competition footage. And so I'll try to have some good competition footage that you guys can watch later on with this, because I really think that is something that I started doing more of last year that was really helpful for me. And I think it might be helpful for you guys this year, just watching more competition footage. But when we're fighting the energy battle on a blitz, what I like to be thinking about is, can I create time loops? Time loops are one of the biggest zaps of energy that there is. Think about it like this. When Doctor Strange fought Dormammu in the first Doctor Strange movie, and spoiler alert, if you guys haven't seen that 2015, 16, I think 2016, I think it came out at the end of 2016. But you haven't seen that movie yet, it's a good one. You guys are missing out. But anyway, there's a point where Doctor Strange meets somebody he cannot beat. He's too big, he's too strong, he's too powerful. And so what Doctor Strange does is he says, okay, maybe I can't beat you, and maybe I can't beat you right this second, but I can create a time loop. And eventually you are going to get tired of fighting this time loop. And so we talked about time loops in jiu-jitsu. We talked about training them as a strategy, but using them as a blitz is one of the best ways to do jiu-jitsu, without a doubt. It's you create a small fight, just one small fight that you can win. And that's all you have to do. And then you do it a bunch. And so let's say, for example, one of the easiest and most frustrating time loops to get stuck in is you and I are rolling. I'm going to get you in a time loop. I'm going to get you in closed guard, and we're in the gi. You're going to start to posture. I'm going to go 2-on-1 on your right sleeve. I have a few different grip breaks that I like to use. And depending on how you counter, and I'm going to break your posture down. And all I'm going to actually do is break your posture down, and I'm going to hug you. I'm going to win the inline control, meaning like, basically I have you in a tie clinch and your arms aren't on the inside, they're on the outside. You cannot posture out of this. You have to swim your arms to the inside. Most people don't even know that. You have to swim your arms to the inside, start to posture up again. Well, I'm going to go 2-on-1 on your other arm. I'm going to break it, and I'm going to try to drag it across this time instead of just breaking your posture. And then you're going to fight out of that because it's going to be frustrating. And keep in mind, at no point am I actually thinking about attacking. I want to make you think that I'm thinking about attacking, but you're better than me. I can't beat you on pure jiu-jitsu. I can only beat you by getting you tired. I can only beat you by getting you to make a mistake because you're frustrated or because you're tired. And so I begin to break your posture again, but you are not escaping my close guard. And I might do this if we're doing it, especially like for me as a black belt, we're doing a 10-minute round. You could do this for 4 minutes and still not even be considered like you're doing anything wrong. If you're doing a 5-minute round, you could do this for 4 minutes. It is so frustrating. It is so exhausting. And honestly, you'll start to even get dumb submissions from closed guard because of it. If you focus less on actually going for stuff and more on just winning over and over and over and over, especially a small fight, especially something that isn't super significant, but it's something that I have to defend every time. Like I said, getting both grips on the pant legs and just going side to side in Toriando. That is a time loop. If you get me caught there, usually most guys do not know how to escape time loops. And so they end up a lot of times just getting really frustrated, getting really tired, and you can win. And so that is going to be, I think, our biggest stuff when we talk about blitzing and kind of those ideas. But now we want to make sure with the blitz, with talking about fighting for energy, we can dig deeper on, or we will dig deeper on the idea of pacing in the next episode. But, well, I'm sick still, and I don't really have much more energy to talk about it. You guys felt how caffeine fueled the beginning of this episode was. So I want to talk about having a deep understanding of your own gas tank. I'm not just talking about like, hey, you should be doing cardio or something like that, right? Cardio is very useful. Having good jiu-jitsu cardio is obviously a super useful thing. Sometimes people genetically actually have very good jiu-jitsu cardio, or just good cardio, right? Obviously, things that could help your cardio: having less body fat, being stronger actually can help your cardio. I know that sounds crazy, but if you are using less percentage of your overall strength, you're using less of your overall energy, and it is a really good way to help your cardio is to have some good strength training. And obviously there are points of diminishing return with anything, with flexibility, with strength, even with doing cardio, even with like long distance running, things like that. There are these points of diminishing return in jiu-jitsu. We're constantly at a battle of knowing when we are doing too much and when we are doing too little, and then when we're doing just enough. And that's pretty much one of the biggest fights for consistency in jiu-jitsu is, am I doing enough to stay healthy, but to get my best results, keep me consistent, right? That's such a tough battle. But when we're talking about having a deep understanding of our gas tank, doing days where your biggest goal is, hey, I am going to be gassed today. I'm going to be super tired today. It gives you a really good understanding of when you're actually tired. Because sometimes I will say, man, I've felt almost being tired. I've been like almost avoiding being tired because I'm coming back from being sick. So maybe I'm going to come back in a few days and I start to train. And I go, well, I'm going to avoid being tired because I was sick, and I might do that for even a few days or a few weeks even, because I want to make sure that I am getting back in shape intelligently and not killing myself. And then a lot of times what happens though is you keep playing that in your mind, and you're a week in and you go, yeah, I was sick a week ago. I don't have good cardio. Well, at this point, it wasn't as much being sick. You've kind of gotten yourself back into training. Now we need to push the cardio a little bit because we need to test it. So I might go in for a day of training and go, okay, I'm going to get tired today. I'm going to only go with tough guys today. I'll look around the room when I get there like, oh man, I wish I hadn't said this. Look how tough this room is. And I do it. I go in, I only go with tough guys. And a lot of times actually you end up getting surprised. You go, oh, my cardio wasn't that bad. I just haven't been testing it. Right. And so then I can go back and I can go, okay, well, my cardio is not that bad when I push it. Now, if I went the next day and said, and this is again, understanding your own gas tank. Let's say I did that first hard day back and I felt really good. And it's a Sunday. Well, Monday morning, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to do my yoga, watch jiu-jitsu, and then I'm going to go into my coach's gym and train hard again. Not going to feel as good. And this isn't everybody, but for me specifically, it's always is like this for me. So what I do instead is I train hard that first day coming back. And then maybe I take a day where I don't train as hard again. I train, but I'm not trying to kill myself. And then the next day I say, okay, I'm going to push it again. I'm going to see where my gas tank's at. And I might even get further. I might go, whoa, my gas tank's a little better, right? Most of the time, the idea that we go with of I'm just going to beat myself down and then eventually I'll have great cardio. It works to an extent. It doesn't work as efficiently as it could be, though. It could be so much easier. You could be training so much easier and protecting your body so much more than you have been. But this idea that we've got to be we've got to be training hard and we got to be pushing ourselves is like, it's kind of taking over, right? I have nothing against that idea. But when you ignore other things and just focus on that, that's when I have something against that idea, right? It's like when an entrepreneur, their only focus is like saving money, okay? There's nothing wrong with saving money, right? But here's the problem. If you are only focused on saving, you have no goal to make more, your focus is not on making more, you're going to always be saving from the same small amount, right? For us, we would rather start to put some more focus on making more and saving, right? The saving is important, but it's not the most important thing, okay? It is something we need, But it is not all we need, because if I'm just focused on saving and not focused on building my business and building my brand and making more, well, eventually I'm going to actually start to lose money from my business. My business is going to start to deflate if I'm not focused on it. And then even though I'm so focused on saving, I don't have any money to save. It's the same thing with like the idea that all problems could be solved by being more mentally tough. It just isn't like that. Yes, a lot of problems could be solved by being more mentally tough. Yes, most people are not tough enough. Yes, there is a big number of people who are weenies in the world. But to act like that is the answer to everything, to act like the only reason you don't have success in your jiu-jitsu is because you're a weenie, because you don't push yourself hard enough, that's probably ignorant too. Maybe it is. Some people are weenies and don't push themselves hard enough. They just need to toughen up. But so often, there's another answer. For example, let's say you're somebody, you say, oh, I'm injured all the time. And a lot of times people that are injured all the time, almost always people that are injured all the time, when they're new, they blame their training partners. Once they're a black belt, they blame themselves. And it's because most of the time, your injuries are your own fault. Okay. So this would be a perfect example of when people use toughness to ignore a problem. So they are getting injured in training. Like, oh yeah, my elbow hurts from getting arm barred. My shoulder hurts from getting omoplata. My ankle hurts from being straight ankle locked. Whoa, wait a second. Those are a lot of injuries from submission. You really shouldn't get injured much from submission. If you know how to train jiu-jitsu correctly, I understand in competing, sometimes you do get injured trying to defend something. But in the gym, unless there was a big error from you or your training partner or both of you, you probably shouldn't have gotten injured training. But most people's remedy is, oh, well, you should just toughen up and keep coming into practice. We haven't fixed the problem. The problem is you do not understand how to tap. When you go to defend the armbar, you fight tooth and nail until the very, very last second. You're fighting with 100% strength, and then you tap really quickly and you act like your partner, your opponent, your whoever, it was their job to protect you when they're having to now use 100% strength to stop you from escaping the armbar because you're spazzing to get out of it. And then they hurt you. If you guys are listening, I did quotations on that. Finger quotes. When I'm getting sassy with finger quotes, things are getting done. But you get injured, right? You take these injuries because you weren't thinking. You weren't being smart about the tap. You weren't saying, hey, they have me completely controlled. I don't know how to defend this armbar very well. Maybe I should focus on the first layer of defense. And when they beat that, my arm starts to get extended, I should start to prepare to tap. Instead of saying, well, my arm's getting extended, what move could I make up right now while I'm in this position and twist? Where should I go, right? And it's just like an idea of the whole thought process that it's all just about being tougher. It isn't just about being tougher. You have to be smarter. And when it comes to cardio, when it comes to knowing your body, simply just testing yourself sometimes and then taking note of it, just being a little smarter about how you train and how you know yourself physically can add so much longevity to your jiu-jitsu. If you have longevity to jiu-jitsu, you're going to get better. You're going to be better. That's one of the biggest hacks. One of the best videos ever is on YouTube is Keenan has a video on like how to be super high level black belt or something like that. And somebody asked him, what's the best way to do it? And he said, oh, quit your job and train full time. And it is. That is the best way. Be on the mats for a long period of time. You're going to learn the lessons you need to. A lot of it, though, is making smart decisions so we can be on the mats forever. And having a deep understanding of your gas tank so you can blitz, so you can know when you are being blitzed, are you actually in danger or do you have some cardio you can actually use? you can know yourself. You can know basically the vessel that you are doing jiu-jitsu in, so you can better do jiu-jitsu. That's all I have for you guys on pacing today.
And that is the episode. Thank you guys for checking this one out. I liked the idea of doing the repost. I'll check the numbers on the podcast. I'll see if anybody tells me that they enjoyed this episode again. But I know that like the repost Kyle Watson episode, since I went so far back, a lot of people, new listeners, really enjoyed that, heard that for the first time. And then 3 years later, if you heard it when it first came out, a lot of times it feels like you're hearing it for the first time. And so hopefully people like this solo episode of Blitzing. But I thought right now would be a fun time to just give you one little peek of how I think of Blitzing now and how I explain it now. And so to me, the one thing that this episode didn't really cover is when to blitz strategically. We kind of talked about it when it comes to, okay, if a guy's tired, you blitz, right? But we didn't talk about what the high level guys do in a sense of how they make that happen to set up their blitz. And so this is how I see blitzing now. Of course, we still look at jiu-jitsu as two Street Fighter characters, and they both have an energy bar at the top of where their names are, and every time you get hit, your energy goes lower. But in jiu-jitsu, every time you use energy, your energy goes lower. And so a really simple idea that I always try to tie into my technique, that I always try to ask with techniques that I'm implementing and I'm trying to do more of, is this: am I using more energy than he is? Because if I'm using more energy than he is, especially me strategically now at adult black belt, where I know physically, because I'm a fat slob, or maybe because everybody's on steroids, but it's going to be very hard for me to just go out and waste energy. I'm not going to do well in matches doing that. My jiu-jitsu technique has to be things that I can say every time I am going positive on the battle of who has more energy. And so that is how I choose technique. As I start to do that though, you still can get in this habit where you're only attempting your lazier guard passes or your less aggressive, less risky guard passes, trying to wear the guy out. And you do this for, your whole match, and then you get swept at the very end because you didn't pass the guy's guard and you gave him too many chances to figure out what you were doing. And so this kind of creates this idea of, well, when do you know when to blitz? And this is kind of how I think about it now. And I've explained these ideas a little bit. The best way to get me to explain this idea is to bring me in for a seminar. Send me an email, josh@simplifyingjujitsu.com. But I really try to tie in blitzing with understanding distance. And I talk about it in the next episode. This is why distance is the next episode. This was episode 111 when it originally came out. 112 was about distance management, or maybe 113. But this is why I started to see this. I didn't realize how significant it was, but it really is significant. Think about something as simple as how much energy it would take for you to win the fight of a takedown if you're disconnected with somebody. You guys have 3 feet of distance from you guys. Then think about how much easier it would be to win that takedown battle if your chest was touching that person's chest and you had double underhooks, right? Yes, double underhooks is control, but still that distance, even if you both had an over and an under, you're still going to have way more opportunity to go on offense. You're going to still have way more opportunity to fight there, right? And so we look at it, I usually teach this from guard passing. And this idea that's starting to become popular is like, they call it chest to chest. I always explain that I like the idea chest over chest better. And then I always explain that I like the idea of chin over trap better. They both, again, if you brought me in for a seminar, I could explain how these make more sense. to really understanding when you should be on offense for guard passing. And the idea is this: if your chest is over somebody's hips and they are in guard, that is when you are in danger. That is when triangles, that is when all kinds of arm locks, that's when omoplatas, and that's when they start to gain access to your hips a lot of the time too. Or the other place that's bad that you could be when you are in guard and you are on top is chest under hips, okay? Meaning they have you in single leg X, they have you in X, they have you in something where they are underneath you and they have control of your legs. There's some other thoughts on controlling the hips, but we can't get into those. We don't got time for that. Book a seminar, josh@simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com. But then if you start to look at these distances, you will start to realize that there is an offensive distance for the top player. And that offensive distance is when you are chest over chest. You don't even have to be hugging the person, just chest over chest. Or chin over trap, or however else people explain this. I'm sure other coaches, I'm sure your coach probably even has an example of this, but maybe explains it a little bit differently. Because as you grapple for a long enough time, you start to realize how important distance is. But anyway, so your chin over trap, what happens is the bottom player has every one of their main joints, both shoulders, both hips, flat on the ground, and it becomes very hard for them to win fights, right? Because each arm of mine can deal with an arm of his, each leg of mine can deal with a leg of his, but here's the kicker: I have gravity on my side. I am just laying on top of him as I'm winning these pummels, getting closer and closer, and I'm able to pass. And so kind of the idea of offense and defense there, the idea of when to blitz and when not to goes, okay, are you chest over chest? Then now would be a good time to blitz. Maybe you need to blitz to get chest over chest and then continue and follow through your blitz from there. But are you chest over hips? Well, no, you're in danger if you're the top player and you're chest over hips. Bad idea to blitz now. Blitzing is going to open up a lot of space. It's going to put me at a lot of risk. And if I start in a bad distance trying to blitz, most likely I'm going to either waste energy, the guy's just going to keep some contact with my hips and keep me from being able to close the distance. Shoot, I wasn't supposed to tell you guys about the importance of the hips. But anyway, he may do that. Then from there, I'm tired. And now I'm still chest over hips. He's going to submit me. He's going to sweep me. Now, same idea. If I'm chest over chest, well, now it's time to start to bring it. Now it's time to go hard. He's already behind. Of course, I can still sit. Of course, I'm in great position. I can try to wear him out a little more. But to me, when I start to get a little on offense, and simply knowing this, understanding these distances from the guard will let you know who is winning and who is losing. If you know who's winning and you know who's losing, your understanding of when to go and when to be defensive is going to be so much better. When to blitz and when to prevent is going to be so much better. There's also some ideas on controlling the upper thighs and behind the knee and how those two things relate to blitzing and pacing and all those things. But at this point, your brain should be fried. You've learned you heard 2001 Josh McKinney, chubby Josh McKinney with short hair talk about all kinds of stuff that, was crazy and wild. And then it goes to 2023 Josh McKinney with long hair that's skinnier and probably doesn't pay taxes. If you look at him, you would guess that. But I do pay taxes sometimes. Sales tax, But anyway, I'm sure that this has been a busy episode for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you like the format of doing some of these reposts, let me know. If you hate it and you're an avid listener of the show, let me know. I care about making sure the people that actually like and listen to the show continue to like, enjoy, and listen to this show. And so, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you very much. I hope you guys learned a little bit about blitzing. Hope you learned about pacing. Hope you invite me for a seminar. Send me an email, josh@simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com. And most importantly, I hope that today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.